everyone. This is Bob Sorrentino from Italian Roots and Genealogy. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel, our Facebook group, and our newsletter, and our great sponsors, Vetere Casa, Italy Rooting, and Phil Italy. And I have a really great guest from New York City today, author, director, producer, poet, and a number of other things, Richard Vetere. So welcome, Richard. Thanks for being here.
Good. It's interesting. It's Vetere growing up in New York, but when I was doing a movie in Italy, everyone called me Vetere.
It's like Sorrentino. It's unheard of in Italy. It's Sorrentino. I'm embarrassed when I'm there and I say my name, you know?
I gotcha.
So you grew up in Maspeth, Queens, correct?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So
Was it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my father was from Bleecker and McDougal, and my mother was from the Italian section in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And they got married. They drove over the Kosciuszko Bridge right to Maspeth. And crazy enough, they both lived and died probably within 5 miles where they were born.
Wow, that is something.
Think about that.
Yeah, that is really truly amazing. So, all right, so I'll tell you the secret.
Yeah, sure.
I grew up in College Point.
Oh my gosh.
And my parents, they weren't born in Corona, but they both lived there. That's where they met.
Right.
And then I lived in for about 8 years after my divorce from my first wife. I lived in Ridgewood, so right down the block.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm not far from College Point now.
Where are you?
I live in Queens.
Oh, really? Where?
Yeah, in Murray Hill, right on the border of Bayside and Flushing.
Yeah, I know exactly where. I went to St. John's.
Oh my God, so did I for my BA and Columbia for my master's. I graduated. Okay, let's figure this out. I graduated in. I went to Columbia in '73, so I graduated in '73 from St. John's.
Yeah, I was there 71 through 73. I started at Queensboro.
Right.
And then I went to St. John's. I was in Sigma Chi Beta, which no longer exists.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Monte Cristi.
I went to McClancy.
I applied for McClancy. I applied for Monte Cristi. What were the other two? I forget the other two. But I went to Monte Cristi because, well, a lot of my friends from College Point were going there, and I wanted to go to diocesan school, you know?
I was just asked to speak to McClancy. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 now. So I got to go back to the high school and give a talk. It was great fun.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. So now I didn't, were there a lot of Italians in Maspeth growing up?
I thought everybody in the world was Italian. Well, actually Italian and Irish. I went to St. Stanislaus in Maspeth. Everybody was Italian, Polish, or Irish. German too, actually. And then I went to McClancy where everybody was Italian or Irish and Polish. I went to St. John's and I think everybody I knew was Italian, Irish, Polish, German. And then I think I met my first Jewish person at St. John's. And then I went to Columbia and I was the only Italian guy.
Yeah, see, that's funny. That's funny. We had a great guy in my fraternity, Jeff Weingraf. He was the Jewish guy in our fraternity.
Yeah, and I think I met my first 2 black friends in high school, and then really didn't meet too many in St. John's. And then at Columbia, like I said, everybody was Jewish, so I was kind of like an outsider in a way for the first time in my short life there so far.
Yeah. So where did your parents' families come from in Italy?
Naples. You know, my grandparents were born here. You know, my grandmother was born here, literally on the boat coming here. And my father's parents were born here. She was adopted, one of my grandmothers, my father's mother, and my mother's mother and father were both born here. So I'm 3rd generation.
So they came pretty early then, your family.
I guess they did. Yeah, I saw a census thing in the 20s. That was like the first time they were mentioned, my father and his father. My father's father, my grandfather, who I never met. Actually, I never met my father's father. I never met my father's mother. I did know my mother's grandparents. My grandfather on my father's side had a tailor shop on Spring and 6th. where there was a restaurant for years. I think COVID closed it, but I did a documentary on Italian Americans, and I actually shot that whole thing there. Not the whole documentary, but I shot a whole scene. Spring and Six.
Yeah, my grandfather, my father's father, and his brother, they had an embroidery shop, and I think it was around 14th Street. I don't know exactly what avenue. For many years, from the 20s through like I guess the late 50s, maybe even into the early 60s, and they made bridal crowns
Yep.
and bridal veils and things like that.
Yeah, there was a factory right across on the west side of Sixth. Nice building. It's an apartment building now. And I know my aunts on my mother's side all worked there, you know. So my father was from the West Village. And, you know, I had aunts and uncles. So I was in the West Village when I was a kid, visiting all the time for holidays. And my mother's from Williamsburg, so I was always at Mount Carmel Feast, and I was baptized in Mount Carmel on North Fifth Street, North Sixth Street.
Oh wow, oh, wow! I don't know if it's still there, but there was a well, Williamsburg. The last time I was there, and this is many years ago, the Italian section was down to just like a few blocks.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it was all the hipsters moved in, and a lot of the people that held on to their homes despite all the drugs in the 70s and crime in the 80s and 90s, they made a lot of money selling their homes. Williamsburg is nothing like my first movie, Vigilante, we shot in McCarran Park, 82, 83, and what a nightmare there was. Graffiti everywhere, everything was broken. And when we had a screening in Williamsburg at the Nighthawk Theater, maybe about 10 years ago, now all the young filmmakers could not believe that was Williamsburg that we shot a lot of the scenes in. You know, now you could never shoot in Williamsburg. It just looks like some beautiful neighborhood somewhere, but not in the 80s.
Well, there was a great I don't remember the name. There was a great Italian bakery there I think it was right on the corner.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I can't remember the name. Someone just
I
mentioned
can't
it.
remember the name, but boy, it was fantastic. Because I worked for Chemical Bank for a long time, and I used to stop
Right.
there when I lived in Queens. I would stop there on the way to work and pick up pastries to bring to work. Fantastic place. Well, you know, my connection with Williamsburg and Brooklyn and all of that is my dad was a photographer for the Daily News for 38 years.
Wow.
So you saw his pictures growing up.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best to write a book about in his work from his first person about the photos because I've seen or I was able to get them on newspapers.com, his photos, and I remember some of the stories. My cousin also worked for the Daily News as a photographer because his life was so interesting, you know, and he was I think when he was started, he was probably one of the first, not the first, but one of the early Italian American photographers for the Daily News.
I think I remember seeing his name.
Yeah, Nick Sorrentino.
I was very lucky because in those days when you had a play produced in the 70s, you'd get 5 newspapers covering your, and I did many interviews in the Daily News, the Post, Newsday. I was always being interviewed, and I still have a lot of the photos. In fact, I'm looking at one now on my office wall where I did an interview for, I think it's the Daily News. They used to do these quick bios with your photograph, and I was a young kid. Now, you know, everything's online.
So that one, the book about the 70s, is that you on the cover?
That's me. Yes. Thanks. Yeah. That's me at St. John's, standing in
No shit.
front of, oh, what's that building there? I had won a poetry award, and the photographer said, let's take a picture. And I said, wait, there's this caddy outside that has not moved in the parking lot. It's full of dust. It was spring. And so that's me. Yeah. And I posed, I set the whole photo up, and that building behind there, I forgot, I had a lot of classes in there. So that's me. Yeah. That's on the cover of my biography about the 70s, Live Fast, Die Young, Leave a Good Looking Corpse. And yeah, I love that photo. And I was able to convince the publisher to use the photo of me on there.
I'll have to send you. I have a bunch of photos from St. John's from my fraternity. Every year we would take a picture. One year, and maybe you remember, but one year we decided we were going to make some money by getting a junk car. And I don't know how they let us bring it on
Mhm.
campus. I have no idea how we got that through. And then you would come with a sledgehammer and you'd pay a quarter or whatever and smash the
I
car.
remember that. Yeah. I remember that. Wow. That's funny.
You know how
I
much we
remember.
made? Like a quarter, because we were all taking shots at it before anybody else did.
Well, you remember then, because I tell students now and younger people the protest against the war.
Yes.
You know, yeah. So, and now I teach at Queens College screenwriting, and that college was closed a lot because of the riots and protests. And I got caught up, me and my buddy, on our motorcycles in one. But in St. John's, it wasn't. They never closed because of the protests. I remember.
Yeah, and I was at Queensboro at that time. I was at Queensboro, and Queensboro, it did close. I mean, it did close. Everybody was there on campus, but nobody went to school.
Right.
So did you, I always like to ask this question. Well, two questions. One is, did you eat, a lot of Italian food? And what was it like when you brought your non-Italian friends home to eat mom's cooking?
First off, yeah, my mother's cooking wasn't very good at first. And then she really developed into a great cook. But we had, we were the people who had, okay, now they call it pasta, but we used to call it macaroni.
Of course.
Exactly. So we had it on Thursdays and Sundays. And my grandmother was a great cook. That was my mother's mother. When I would bring my friends over from they'd come to my mother's house for a nice big dinner or a big Sunday brunch. And she made tons of food. They loved it. In fact, for years they talked about it. Every time I'd run into friends from LA, friends that I'd be working with in the theater or film, and I bring them to my mother's house, and they loved the food. And my mother went all out. I remember once bringing the star from Silk Stockings, Bob Estes, and my mother. I didn't tell her I was bringing him, and she just almost fainted when he walked in. But some of the people we had at the house were Walter Matthau. And I'm sorry, not Walter Matthau, Farley Granger.
Oh,
Farley
wow.
Granger. Yeah, he came and he did my play, The Marriage Fool, and we had a party. My father built this gorgeous basement where it was like a disco, with a bar. So I would have parties there when I was a kid. And then when I had plays done or a movie and I invite people, I had birthday parties. I'd have like Deborah Hill, who produced Halloween. She was there. The reporter from, all kinds of people showed up and they wrote stories. It was great fun. And my mother just loved to cook. She just loved to cook and have all these. That was, I think, after my father passed away. So she just really enjoyed, not that she needed the company because she was very social, but she loved the parties.
Yeah, the kitchen down the basement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
And, we had a bar down there. We had this. My father put the lights and the stereo system. So, but Farley Granger just sat there and he had one highball after another. It was really funny. He just loved being out of Manhattan.
Not that I get a lot of young listeners, but they have no idea what a highball is.
We'll be right back.
Experience Italy like never before, traveling with a scheduled group or create your own bespoke tour with friends with philitaly.co. Pack your bags and follow Phil. That's www.philitaly.co.
No, I know. Trust me, my students don't know half the things I talk about. And I asked them, I said, do you still say this phrase? And sometimes they'll know it, and a lot of times they won't.
My uncle Anthony used to drink Manhattans.
Oh yeah, my Uncle Carmine loved Manhattans.
And they're like, that's like firewater, that stuff,
Yeah.
And I was on a cruise with a friend of mine. He's Italian also. We were drinking martinis every night. He said, let's try Manhattans. I had two of those. I was hallucinating.
Yeah. Well, I brought this up the other day that the word cocktail went out of style for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It did, right? I'm
Yes.
not sure. It might have been the 70s for sure. Not sure about the 80s, but now cocktails are big again. They're just big.
Yeah. And then there's a million different ones. We didn't have that many different cocktails when I was growing up.
No, right.
When I growing up in College Point, we had a bar on every 10 feet.
Yes.
And our rite of passage was you would try to hit as many bars as you could before you couldn't move anymore.
Right. Were you on College Point Boulevard or?
I lived on 127th Street, but College
Okay.
Point is
Yeah.
tiny little place.
Yes.
And mostly, there were Italians were starting to come in when we moved in the 50s, but before then it was all Irish and German.
Yeah, that was definitely Irish, I remember. Yeah, German, yeah.
But a great place to grow up. It was really a super place to grow up. So have you been, I'm sure this is a stupid question, but you've been back to Italy, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I've been really lucky. My first trip to Italy, believe it or not, Rome, was I got hired to write a movie. My movie Vigilante got me a lot of work in Europe. Paris, I lived there 3 months. Then I got hired to write a movie in Rome, and I lived in Rome for 3 months. They put me up at the Algebra. I was just talking about this the other night at a screening of a movie with Armand Asante and a few people. It was the Aldrovandi Palace, right across the park from the Villa Borghese. So I lived in Rome for 3 months. Then they did my play on Caravaggio, and I think that was 2013, 2014. So I was on tour. We opened up at the Museum Capitolini, the play. Then we went up to Porta Eckerli, that's north, and then we went down south again to Capri. So I got to live in all these places while the play was running. Capri was just stunning. I loved Capri, and I can't wait to go back. So yeah, so I have spent time. Those were at least 2 trips in Italy.
Yeah, I wish if I knew what I know now, I would have had a place there. I could kick myself that I don't have something there. Even, just a small little place to go. And it's just so
Yeah,
peaceful. The food is great. The people are nice.
yeah, the food's amazing. Never get a bad meal anywhere when you're in Italy. Nowhere.
No, and the wine is cheap.
Yes, wine's great.
Real cheap, real cheap. Yeah, our first trip was like 30 years ago. My son was a baby, and we just went to Naples and Sorrento. But within the last 5 years, we made a few trips, and I found believe it or not, my father's first cousins were still alive at 90 years old, and they were
Oh,
in touch
wow.
with the family up until the 60s. I had no idea. Nobody ever said anything. That's the worst part, But it's a lot of fun, and we hope to go back again next September, I think, and hit a few places. So I'm interested to know. So when you started writing, did you focus on, the Italian American stuff or the Italian type of stuff?
Absolutely not, in all honesty. I started writing poetry in grammar school, and a young girl sitting next to me in, I think it was sixth grade, gave me a poem. She showed me a poem, and I just ran home and wrote a poem. I really did. My heroes growing up were Keats, Byron, Yeats. Later on, the British writers were the writers I really focused on. And then when I went to St. John's and I won a poetry contest, I was the judge who became my mentor, Dr. Remo Iannucci. He was the dean of the foreign languages department. And he turned me on to a lot of Italian poets, Montanelli. I got to read more the playwright Pirandello. So thanks to him, I discovered Italian writers. And kind of, I always saw myself as American, but I know being Catholic, being Italian, and actually being a New Yorker is what people, I believe, see me as. I get that a lot. I meet very few people that were born in Manhattan. I was born on 23rd and Lex at a hospital called the Women's Infirmary, which is now gone, but there's a plaque there, 23rd and Lex. So I just thought everybody never really thought about being Italian until I got older and started meeting people that weren't Italian. And they were really fascinated by the fact that I was Italian, mostly when I got into the theater, because there were very few Italian-American playwrights. There are Italian-American playwrights, but nobody really talks about them as Italian-American. But there are. That's when I found, because once again, most of the playwrights I knew were Jewish, and they saw me kind of as an anomaly, being an Italian-American writer, So I didn't think about it much. I thought about it for a while, and now I've forgotten about it again. Like, I'm writing about what I want to write about. My last play just done on off-Broadway with Len Carew was called Zagłada, and it's Polish for genocide. And one of the characters, though, he's works for NYPD intelligence, is Napoli, an Italian guy. So that helped me write the play. But I've gotten to the point where I could write any kind of character. I've been around where I've met almost everybody. So it works for my world. But the play is set in Queens in a police precinct. So,
Yeah.
you know,
That's pretty cool. So, how do you when you write, how do things pop into your mind with a character? How do you build a character?
well, that's interesting. It takes years to get to know people. So, when you get to know people, then there's this subconscious thing that happens where you are the characters, but really most people won't know it unless they really get to know you, or you use friends, people you met. For instance, my play Gangster Pal was very successful. It's a two character about two young hitmen, and one of them feels the other guy, his buddy, is keeping him down in the club because he doesn't dress well enough. And the play is a two-hander, published by Dramatic Publishing. It was done a lot. It was a comedy. And I got that idea because I saw a play at the Actors Studio that was kind of about two thugs, and that was the title. And I said, this guy who wrote this has no idea what a real hitman's about. So I went to my friend's restaurant and asked him, when the guys who made guys come in, what do they wear? What do they do? And the New Yorker did a whole piece on me finding out about, what a gangster wears, eats, dresses like. And it was a big hit. I sold it to Paramount, the play, but they never made the movie. They never made the movie of it. So that's one thing. And like Zaguata, what was interesting is growing up in Maspeth over the years in the Polish section, somebody every couple of decades was arrested for relying on their passport application when they came here after World War II. And they're usually German, Ukrainian, even though the neighborhood is Polish. So at the Actors Studio in the PDW unit, that's Playwright Directors Workshop, I had to write a play for the year. And I wanted to write this play about a guy getting arrested in his 90s. And there I open up a local newspaper. I tell my students all the time, read as much as you can. And there it is. A guy had just got arrested. And what happened was a journalist came to his door and he took a shot at her with an old gun. So when the police come and arrest him, you know what he says to the police? He says, "Why are you arresting me? I'm not a Jew." And I said, wow, that is the way into the play that I've been thinking about for years. So I developed the play in the Actors Studio. Maya Wampuzik directed it, and then she directed it and played the Homeland Security guard, and Len, Homeland Security agent, who wants to prosecute him and extradite him for war crimes. And Len Carew played Jerzy Kozlowski, the guy who said those words. So inspiration comes from everywhere, but you got to be prepared and you got to search for it a lot of times. And that's how I build characters. Watching Len, who I just saw last night perform at the West Bank Cafe, I was thinking how when he did the play, he became Kozlowski. And Len's from Canada. He's not Polish. And he slowly absorbed this older man who had been a capo at Buchenwald. So that's how I find, play. Right now I'm adapting, my third miracle. There's the poster behind me. Ed Harris played the priest in the movie, The Third Miracle. Coppola produced it. And I'm now turning the novel, which was published by Simon & Schuster 20 years ago. And I'm now developing it as a stage play, trying to adapt it, the movie screenplay, which I own the rights to now, and the novel. So that set in Maspeth too, about a priest who's assigned by the Vatican as a postulator to see if this woman is a saint and if these miracles that are happening are actually true miracles.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. And the answer that guy gave to the police is something else. Did you ever hear of the Jewish couple and I believe it was Williamsburg. The name escapes me now. It'll come to me. That helped the priest pay the rent for the Italian church?
Yeah, I did hear about that. Yes.
I keep saying somebody should do this story. You'd be perfect for it. Basically, what happened was the Italians couldn't, I'm pretty sure it was Williamsburg, but the Italians couldn't pray in the Irish church. So they went to the bishop. They used to have the masses in the basement or something. And they went to the bishop, and the bishop said, "I have a piece of land." It was only a couple of blocks away, but you need to build a church. There's no church there.
Right.
So they rented a storefront and they were having masses there, and they were building the church and everything. And one day the priest was walking down the block, and he passed this Jewish man, and he says, "Father, what's the problem?" And he says, "I need $500 to pay. I don't have it, and I don't know where I'm going to get it." And he said to him, "I'm going to get you the money. Don't worry about it." And he told his wife, and his wife said, "Well, you have no money. Where are you going to get this from?" And the Jewish community chipped in, and he gave him the money, and eventually got paid back. And he eventually passed away. And now this was like 1913 or something like that. And 1939, his family's in Austria, and they need to get out. And they have no money. They can't get out. They don't know what they're going to do. They don't know where they're going to go. And people told her, "You should go to here, and you know, go to Washington, and go ask this person, go ask that person. She's going to find anything." And then somebody told her, "Go to Cuba. Cuba will help you. There's somebody there in Cuba." She flies to Cuba. She gets off the plane, and she sees two altar boys dressed in red and a cardinal, an archbishop. And she gets off the plane, and she's trying to figure out, why is this archbishop meeting? It was the priest that they saved. He was now the papal nuncio. He was friends with Pius XII. And he told her, who needs to come? He brought, I forget how many, but a couple of dozen people over to Cuba, supported them for years until the war was over.
Yeah, people forget the I mean, I heard stories from my father growing up in the village where the Irish and Italians never got along. Now it sounds so archaic because that's, you know, and when other immigrants come in, they have their problems with other immigrants coming in. So this is a New York story, and I just recently read about how the Irish would not let the Italians in their church.
Yes,
and I was like,
true.
oh, gosh, it sounds so archaic now, but that's something, I heard. I didn't grow up with it, but I heard about it.
Well, even Mother Cabrini, right? But she had a struggle with him, 5'4" and everything. And that was a fantastic. That was just a great movie.
One of the three saints, actually. Mother Seton, Mother Cabrini. Who's the other? There's three American saints, or maybe just two. I don't know. I know all the research, and now it's not in my head. But yeah, that's quite true.
Yeah, like I said, it's hard to believe. I mean, I never experienced that growing up too much. Yeah, there were kids here and there would say something like that, because College Point, like I said, hard to believe it was part of New York City back then. And we were like our own little island,
Well, it's not just you. In Queens itself, it was a trip to go into Manhattan, and we're all part of the same city. And I was there every day at the Actors Studio in my 20s when Israel Horowitz brought me into the playwrights group. But, it wasn't easy to get to. Those days you could drive. I would drive and park anywhere. Like, it was pretty amazing. And or take the 7 train, park in Hunters Point and take the 7 train. And I was in a late, I'd be in the city late. I was a young kid. I was always out. And then when I went to Columbia, that was a trip. From Maspeth to get to the Upper West Side, 116th Street. I think I took the 1 train, and, it took me an hour and a half to commute one way. But those were the days when it was. Now it's so much easier, to get Manhattan and Queens and Brooklyn is its own city again. It's enormous. So New York has gone through some great changes since I was a kid. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I had to take the bus from College Point to Flushing. Get on the 7 train.
Yeah.
This is for high school. Get on the 7 train, switch at Queensboro Plaza, take the R train.
Yes.
And then walk. And it was an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, or something like that. When I got my license and got my car, it was 20 minutes. Grand Central.
Right, exactly. Except now nothing's 20 minutes when you drive.
No, it's a whole nother world. So, for anybody who's, young or starting, or even old, somebody that wants to start writing, I know you mentioned a couple of things, but what would you advise them to do?
Well, it's all kind of different now, but if you want to write fiction, if you want to write screenplays, I just happen to do them all. It wasn't a plan. I just did it. It's harder now. It's more difficult. I'll probably be talking about this Saturday. I'm on a panel for a film festival, but the industry has changed drastically. You know, oddly enough, there are more schools teaching writers how to write, but there's less jobs. You know, I've been really lucky. I'm a lifetime member of the Writers Guild, which is a union, a Writers Guild of America East. So actually, I even get a pension from all the work I did, all the studio and network writing I did. Now it's even harder to get that. You know, you got to be on a series. You know, like for instance, what I would recommend is if you're a playwright, like I have a short play in the Chain Short Play Festival opening in February. I wrote a play about Caravaggio and his model Lena. It's a short play, but I'm part of that festival. And I think they're doing something like 97 short plays over a period of 6 weeks. I would get into as many festivals as possible. Well, the first thing you got to do is write, and it takes years to learn a craft. Try to be an apprentice. In other words, find someone who is doing their productions and see if you could help out and be there, because they really don't teach, I find, the fundamentals of writing in a lot of these schools. Though it's all according to how good the teachers are and what kind of experience they have. But I teach story and plot. You got to have a character who wants something. And it could be about you. It doesn't really matter. Or you could disguise yourself as a character. But I would say that writing is the most important thing. I write every day. I still write every day. When I was younger, I'd write 6, 7 hours a day, every day. Now it's a few hours, you know, but you got to write. And then you got to go. I even told the kids in high school, forget about being online. You got to go in person to places. You got to meet people and, you know, get to see them physically, get them to know you. I would go to every kind of organization, poets and writers, whatever it was, meet people and say, yeah, I'm a screenwriter. I never wrote a screenplay in my life. And then, you know, I need money to do it and they'd hire me. You know, you got to learn how to make a living in this business. And that's another thing nobody teaches you because it's difficult. And now that Netflix and Amazon are taking over everything, it's even harder to get anything done. When I was out there, I could sell pilots, make money. You know, I have 5 movies produced. Now I think about it, I'm going, how difficult it is for someone to get a $7 million movie made or $3 million. But I got them done because then I could meet an agent. You got to meet an agent. But before you meet an agent, you better write a darn good screenplay. The other thing you can do too is you could also send your scripts to festivals, not the movie, just the screenplay. So many of them have they give awards for screenplays. My one Caravaggio won a couple of years, the Golden Palm at the Beverly Hills International Film Festival for the best script, the Caravaggio. And, you know, it was just made into a podcast. Actually, my screenplay on Caravaggio by Table Read, which is part of Manifest Media. So I flew out to LA and in the NRG studio in Burbank, 15 actors sat in a studio for 5 hours reading my screenplay word for word. And now it's going to be a podcast that's going to come out in February. You know, they drop it in 3 episodes about Caravaggio because it's so difficult for my screenplay. It's got to be like a $20 to $40 million budget. And I just don't have the connections to the directors. And also, a lot of them don't do period pieces right now. So I'm thrilled that it's going to be a podcast. So you have to see every opportunity, you know, but you got to write. If you don't write, no one's going to know you're a writer. I mean, you got to write. And guess what? You got to write many things until you really learn the craft. People forget that writing is a craft. Screenplays are about structure. Novels, I would say, really are about narrative, language, storytelling. You have a lot more space. And a play is the hardest thing because you have a limited space, a limited time, a limited amount of characters to tell a story. And it takes a lifetime of dedication. The second part is, as Norman Mailer used to say, you got to meet somebody that could change your life. And luckily I met definitely 4 or 5 people, maybe more, since I was young that changed my life in my career, which is the same thing.
That's great advice. And you know, the thing that you mentioned that they don't make period pieces, there's so much crap that they're putting out. And I mean, I'm a history guy, so I find it
Right.
fascinating, they just remade The Leopard in Sicily, which was
Oh, they did?
fantastic. Oh yeah, you didn't see it? It's like
No, not yet.
it's like a six-parter. It's all in Italian, but if you get it on Netflix,
Oh, yeah,
they
yeah, I did
translate
hear
it into
about it.
English. It's fantastic.
My
It's
favorite
really, really, really good.
Yeah, my favorite thing that came out of Italy was My Brilliant Friend. I loved every episode. I read every book. So it being in Italian, it didn't bother me at all. They had the subtitles, and I can't speak Italian. But boy, that was brilliant. That was brilliant. And since my family was from Naples, that was kind of interesting. I actually spent one day in the city of Naples, just one, on the way to Capri. But I love
Yeah,
that.
my dad's family is from Naples, and my grandmother comes from two noble families.
Mm.
So Caracciolo and Piomalo. Caracciolo, when I'm there and I say my grandmother was Caracciolo, they flip out. It's like one of the old. I was able to trace back my direct line to 950 in Naples.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And because it's all documented. It's all in the Libro
Right.
d'Oro, so it's all
That's
documented.
interesting. That's really interesting.
So yeah, I was reading the notes before. I wanted to mention this before we go. I did interview Michelle Danner, so I know you worked with her, right?
Oh, my God. Is that what you going to surprise me with?
That was the second surprise. The first one was College Point. This was the second one. Yeah.
Yeah, Michelle. Oh my God. Yes. Michelle, she directed my movie How to Go on a Date in
Yes.
Queens with Bob Estes. Yeah. And Clint Eastwood's daughter. Yeah. I haven't seen her for years, but she was great. Every time I went to LA, I'd have dinner with Michelle because she lived in Santa Monica and I'd always try to stay in Santa Monica. How's she doing?
She's doing great. I'll send you the interview. I'll send you
Yeah.
the link for the interview. I had a really good friend, my fifth grade girlfriend, who dumped me, broke my heart when I was 10. She lived in Santa Monica for years and years and years. And about 6 years ago, she got Italian citizenship and moved to Italy, and she's been there since. Yeah, she
Wow.
loves it.
From Santa Monica.
Yeah, she loves it. She moved there when she was like 19 or something like that, and always wanted to live in Italy.
How did you connect with Michelle?
Jeez, how did it? Somebody told me about her. I don't remember her. Who? It was either that or possibly her agent contacted me. I don't remember exactly.
Okay, great. I have a fun story. So when we did How to Go on a Date in Queens, it was done in Santa Monica as a play. And then Michelle said, I want to do it as a movie. So we're doing the movie and she has a song in there sung by Tony Bennett. So she says, I'm having a hard time getting the rights. So I wind up with Sonny Grasso, my great friend, the French connection. We have dinner and who's at the table? Tony Bennett. So I say to Tony, we would love to get the rights to your song. He said, just let me know. So Michelle flies in and we're at Mandicati's in Long Island City. And there's Tony sitting at lunch, and I introduce him to Michelle, and he goes, "Yeah, you could use my song." So, it's a small world. Once you put it out there, that's the other thing I tell younger people: just put it out there. You wouldn't believe what amazing things come your way once you do that. And the song is in the movie.
Oh yeah, my both my nephews went to the Frank Sinatra School in New
Yes,
York.
yeah, he was busy. That's why he was there. Yeah.
Yes, he was. I think they both met him, but yeah, he was there all the time. He would go there all the time.
Yeah,
very
yeah,
very nice.
and
Very
he was
nice
a great guy. Yes.
Early in the interview when we were talking, you mentioned about the Jewish playwrights, and there are some Italians, but nobody knows who they are. I interviewed a great young singer in New York, jazz singer Vanessa Racci, and she does a tribute to all the Italian Americans that wrote in the 1910, 1920, 1930, and they had to change their names to get published.
Well, that's the other thing too. You're absolutely right. Yes. Yes. They had to change their names. People forget. What I mean about Italian American people, the Italian Americans talk about the Italian American novelists, movie stars, film directors, maybe, but they don't talk about Italian American playwrights. And I'm not sure why, because theater is very Italian. The Commedia dell'arte in Naples. There's Pirandello won the Nobel Prize, great playwright. And we're just not thought of as Italian Americans. And I really don't. I do write about Italian Americans when I play Rockaway Boulevard, Johnny on the Pony, or about Italian Americans. But then I started writing about other stuff. Plus, also, I have my published plays Machiavelli, which was a hit off Broadway years ago, and my play about Caravaggio. So I have written about Italians too, but not too many people talk to me about that as much as what else, other stuff I'm doing, which is kind of interesting. But I do write about other people. I write about anyone. I don't really think about where they're from. But the Italian American thing is kind of interesting, how we just don't focus on Italian American playwrights in the theater.
Yeah, that's an important point. And be honest with you, I didn't either. So, and I've been doing this for 6 years, and I've interviewed authors. You're the first playwright that I've interviewed. I've interviewed, Michelle, and I interviewed Michael Cavalieri. I don't know if you know Michael or not, or heard of Michael.
No, I know.
He's done some documentaries on Sicily. He was in the was it the second Karate Kid or something like that?
Okay.
And a female actress she was the Karate Kid, and he was the punk that she beat up.
Mm-hmm.
He was a real wise ass, and then she beats him up. But yeah, I think it's interesting that, some of that goes on the side. And, we're Americans first, obviously. But there's that connection. There's just that connection, especially when you go there. You don't lose it. So before we go, I know you have a website. So why don't you give us the website, and if there's any other thing that you want to turn people onto?
Yeah, I'm really easy to find. I find on the internet. My website is richardvetereauthor.com. So if anybody ever wants to write me, they just go to the website and I get the email. I'm all over Instagram. I'm all over Facebook. And every time I have a production, everything is on Instagram, interviews. So you could find me really easily.
All right. Well, that's great. Well, thanks for being here, Richard, and Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you. And happy birthday. I got a birthday coming next month.
Oh, happy birthday. Yeah, we're pretty close in age. I'm a little bit older than you. I won't say how much.